Chatting now with Rusty Amarante with BELFOR Franchise Group. Rusty, please introduce yourself and tell us about your position with BELFOR Franchise Group.
Yeah, great. My name, obviously, Rusty Amarante, and started in the restoration business as a kid in 1977, and have evolved in restoration and the franchise business. And now I'm lucky enough to be the president of the BELFOR Franchise Group here in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
So you've been in restoration for a long time. You've seen some changes, I'm sure. What sorts of changes or visions do you see coming up in the future for BELFOR Franchise Group?
Well, it's everything evolves, right, and everything changes. But we just see the opportunities for us to really be quite spectacular. We know the service industry very, very well. BELFOR itself, without the franchise division, is a $3 billion worldwide company that specializes in restoration. And the only way you survive in that business is understanding and knowing customer service. You can imagine anybody who suffered their home being damaged by fire, smoke, water, a tornado, a hurricane, any kind of a sudden occurrence like that, how it can affect them, their family, or if it's a business. It's a very dramatic thing. And that's no time to be a novice at understanding customer service. So we take a lot of that attitude, that training, and that culture that we have from the mothership, and we do the very best we can to instill that into our franchisees and our franchise thinking, to deliver a quality product ultimately to our customers. So that's I know culture is kind of a buzzword in the last several years, but it's a word that's been in our vocabulary for 30, 40 years. Yeah.
Tell me more about that culture. What do you look for in new team members and maybe even in new franchisees that would be a good fit with your culture?
Yeah, through the years, I get asked that question a lot, and it's a really good one. The very first thing, and frankly, the most important thing we look for is attitude. If you get somebody with the right attitude and the right spirit, the rest of it is real simple and it can be taught. Nobody comes to our industry and says, geez, my whole life I wanted to be a water damage technician, or my whole life I wanted to clean exhaust hoods. My whole dream in life was to clean up after a water damage thing. That just doesn't happen, right? People fall into these industries. But if you are of the attitude and spirit that you like to help people, if that's part of your nature, then you will love our industry. And you'll be very passionate about it. If you're passionate about helping people, it's extremely rewarding. And I'm certainly not criticizing what I'm about to say about other folks and how they think. But if you are more of a structured 9 to 5 person, you take lunch exactly at noon, you stop work exactly at 5 or whatever, that will not typically work for us or for the service industry as a whole, right? You have to have the spirit and the attitude that you need to service the customer when they need it. And that typically in our world can be 24/7. And you've got to be in the right frame of mind and the right spirit and have, as I started with, that right attitude when you're dealing with the customer during those times. So we can teach people how to fix up after a fire. We can teach them how to clean ductwork. We can teach them how to clean carpets. We can teach them a whole bunch of the technical things. That is really, the fundamentals of whatever trade you're interested in. But your attitude towards those things is what will decide whether you'll be successful in that trade or not. So attitude is the very first thing we look for, and the desire to help people. Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about a couple of your brands. First, I want to talk about Blue Kangaroo Packoutz.
Yeah.
If we were meeting for the first time and I asked you exactly what is BKP, what would you tell me? What's your elevator pitch?
Yeah. That's not a real easy elevator pitch one, because it's a very niche business. It's very specialized in that it's so specific. not only to the restoration industry, but within the restoration industry. So for people who are interested in getting into the restoration business, and I think most people who have been doing this for a long time would say our industry is pretty saturated between all the different franchises and all the different independents or whatever. I'm not so sure if there's a lot of room for more, big franchise type models. And that doesn't mean that there aren't roll ups and things like that going on, but you can only have so many McDonald's on a corner, right? And I think restoration is at that point. Blue Kangaroo Packoutz is a segment of that business, which not only is not saturated, but in fact, I think we as BELFOR and Blue Kangaroo Packoutz have highlighted within that industry. So, for folks who do not quite understand what that business is, if someone, at their home or their business were to have a sudden fire, smoke, storm, any kind of property damage, our Packoutz people are trained in the inventory process, in the wrapping, packing process, the proper way to, load a truck, unload a truck. And then when it gets back to our facilities, cleaning, deodorizing, refinishing, reupholstering, reconditioning, then storing the items and then returning them back to the buildings where, the damage occurred. So this is a very unique niche, and in the restoration industry, so many people say that they provide that service, but in all honesty, they provide the service, but not with the focus and the detail that needs to be addressed in that trade. And again, and I've been doing this a long time, but if a guy who was doing a board up on somebody's house last night is not the right person to be packing fine china tomorrow. It's a completely different business, right? It's a completely different trade. It's a completely different craft. So for, restoration folks who think that they can kind of move the different employees to different trades within their business, this is one that you can get a carpenter to help out, on a water loss and vice versa, with not to the detail of a fine craftsman, of course, but taking care of people's contents, it's the closest thing next to touching their body, right? You're going into their home or their business. Every single thing that you own, we are going to touch and pack up and move out. And it's a very emotional, very sensitive time, and it needs to be done the right way. Or you end up, frankly, creating more stress and more heartache for the customer. So we take great pride in understanding that and realizing how to deliver that service.
Let's talk a little bit more about those customers. Tell me about the end user and the impact that a local BKP franchise can have on that community and their customers.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I mean I sort of answered it, but I'll definitely give you a little more detail on it. But I always say to people, you kind of one of the most stressful things that a family, a person or a family can go through in their life is moving. Right? It's even if it's a move you really want to make, you're moving from this house to a brand new house a couple blocks down the road or 1,000 miles away. There's a lot of stress that comes with that. So imagine that happening, tomorrow to you because you had a fire in your house, tonight. And all of a sudden tomorrow you're faced with packing up all of your belongings, all of your clothing, finding a place to live, getting it there. If you got a family, you got to rearrange your kids getting to school. And, I mean, and all this just gets dumped on you unannounced, unplanned, unpredicted. I mean, it's an amazingly stressful time, right? So our BKP folks understand that. We talk to them about that. We teach them that. And their job is to obviously help them out during that time. So, whether it's making sure, that the little girl's teddy bear gets cleaned and dried and is available to her as soon as possible may sound like a silly, stupid thing to somebody when they just lost their whole house. But if that teddy bear is very precious, to your 2-year-old daughter, guess what? It almost becomes more important than, some very valuable things in the home. The sentimental value is spectacular. The real value may be insignificant. So understanding those things are a very big deal, and we try to focus on them. And obviously, we get recognition for those things in the community because a fire or something like that happens to somebody's home. It's not only devastating to the people who are experiencing it, but certainly the surrounding neighbors, friends, family who see the people going through that. They all feel it and feel for them. So yeah, we just try to minimize that level of stress and pain that they're going through.
Tell me about the kind of support that a BKP franchisee could expect. Let's start with pre-launch. How do you set them up to succeed?
Yeah, well, I think, the single biggest thing, and again, I mentioned by saying to you how big BELFOR is, and BELFOR has been in the packing and storing and restoration business for, generations. But the single biggest thing we bring is real genuine expertise, and our level of trainers and our level of people who understand this business is, and I don't mean it to sound chest pounding, but it's unparalleled. I personally, had my own business and did it. So I know what it's all about. I did not go to some weekend class and now became a trainer teaching other people how to do it. We live, eat, and breathe this business all the time, and our people know it inside and out. We know all the mistakes that we've made through the years doing it the wrong way. And all the mistakes that can be made, and we bring those to highlight to the new franchisees to have them hopefully avoid making those mistakes and doing things the right way right out of the gate. So I think for us, that is just a huge thing. We don't just talk about it. We do it because we've lived it. I think the largest pack out that we did at BELFOR was about a $50 million commercial job. And I would bet there's very, very few competitors that could claim to have done something of that magnitude. So if we can handle something like that, we can probably handle a 2-bedroom apartment.
Very good. And then more support down the road in the ongoing years when it comes to marketing or training or operations. What kinds of things can a franchisee expect?
Yeah. So again, I think that, that's part of being a part of a solid franchise system. And that's a very important component to it. I think one of the biggest things that would be of great value to a franchisee is, if you have if I own a franchise and I have a neighboring franchise down the road who acts, thinks, and behaves the same way I do and understands the same systems and processes, if I get really busy, I can maybe call that local franchise and say, "Hey, can you help me out?" And maybe they can, and vice versa. If they need help, maybe I can go help them out. But bringing somebody into your organization, who wears the same uniform, who has the same thought process, who has the same attitude, is a whole lot different than, bringing in 3 temporary employees from an outside company who have, no experience, no knowledge. Yeah, they got strong backs and strong hands, but, as I said to you earlier, there's a whole lot more to it. So I think that alone is a huge value. The other thing, just from purely from a branding and brand recognition standpoint, I believe that for the most part, BELFOR is very respected, in the restoration industry, in the risk management communities, and the insurance communities. And Blue Kangaroo Packoutz, obviously, being a BELFOR brand, certainly, gets some benefit of being associated with that. So I think those are all things that are really good. I think those are all things of great value. But just from the momentum we've already got with BKP, I think it's going to be a very, very recognized brand, all on its own. in the not too distant future. I think we really did shake up the restoration industry with it, and with the great success that we've had with it.
Rusty, tell me some more about the training, especially when it comes to having the full setup in house, when it comes to training both the restoration folks, but also the Packoutz people.
Yeah, so another great question, and something we've invested a lot of money and time into, right? So our training process, I think, is about a 2 week thing. But so in addition to the operational day to day, administrative things, we have a full house that we have that is dedicated to our Packoutz business. It's filled with contents. It's filled, with artwork and lamps and pictures and heavy furniture and light furniture. So when our people come here, we just do not take them through a PowerPoint presentation on how to do a pack out. They have to drive the truck up to the house, and they have to unload all the packing materials. They have to go in and do the actual inventory. And we'll kind of set them up sometimes, and have something that we pretend is of more value than it really is, and see how they treat it, and show them the right way, to pack a box, the right way to wrap and protect furniture. How do you deal with something that's heavily smoke damaged versus something that's soaking wet? That it's two completely different ways of handling and processing. So they have to go and they pack it all up. They go and unpack it at our facility. They clean it. They do what they need to get it right. They repack it, and then they bring it back and put it all back in place. So again, I'm not aware of any other facility like that in our industry in the country. None that I'm aware of anyway. But it's something that we feel when our franchisees leave here, it's not the first time they've actually done this stuff. Will not be an experiment with the customer. It will be here. And we very much encourage them when they get back to their location is to get with their nearest franchisee and work with them for a couple of weeks. Go on some jobs with them. Go experience it for real. So again, that we don't want our new customers to be a test case. So
Very good.
I think it brings great value. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that there are so many choices when it comes to home services, franchisees, and home service platforms. What's the difference between a good home service brand and a great one?
It's kind of obvious, but obviously being committed to customer service, it's almost something you shouldn't need to even say anymore. I think companies like Amazon or whatever have raised the level of customer expectation to such a great degree that if for any brand to say we give great customer service, I think most customers would probably yawn, right? I mean, if you're not giving great customer service, you're probably not in business these days. So I think that's a given. Having said that in that general way, making sure that employees and franchisees understand really what customer service is a job. How fast you answer your phone, how fast you reply to your text messages and emails, how fast you respond to a customer complaint, how fast do you deal with something that didn't go right, and how do you deal with it? Those things are all customer service, and I'm not so sure everybody genuinely quite understands that from time to time. So those things are all as much customer service as the specific task was that you hired the company to complete, right? I mean, if you call our plumbing franchise and they come out and put in a new kitchen faucet, any plumbing company can do that. But did they show up on time? Were they on a uniform? Were they polite and courteous? Did they explain which type of faucet you could have bought and the different cost benefits? How did they behave when they were in the home, right? Those things are every bit as much about customer service as replacing the faucet, maybe if not more. So I think that's a big thing, and I'll be honest, it's getting harder and harder and a bigger challenge in the service industry because there's less and less, frankly, folks that are looking for, service industry jobs. So again, you have to find these people, you have to build them, you have to develop them. And they have to do what you need to do to have them recognize the rewards of it. And to the shock of many of them, it's it can be extremely financially rewarding, and they just don't recognize it that way until they actually get into it. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about that idea of what they can get into, and maybe what some of the common misconceptions about a home service brand are. Are there any myths out there that that you can think of, and if so, how do you fight those? How do you battle those misconceptions?
I think the single biggest misconception, right, is that I think if anybody buys any kind of a service business and they think that they're going to be, hugely successful in 6 months or a year and a half or 2 years, I think then they encountered, with a broker or a franchise development person that may not have been totally honest with them. I'm not saying that it can't happen. Don't get me wrong, but you know, a service business takes time to build. When you buy a service business, you have got to spend so much time building relationships, developing the brand, getting recognition for that service. It's not like a grand opening someplace in a shopping center. If I open up a new restaurant, I can advertise grand opening, and everybody sees it when they drive by. And guess what? When I have the grand opening, everybody can come and come for dinner. Well, if I open up a new duct cleaning business, people aren't going to flock to me for a grand opening, at 6 o'clock on Friday night. So it's there's some definite ramp up time there that is absolutely required. Now, once you get the thing going and it's got momentum, it will continue to go and grow and build. And obviously you have to keep working at that. But um, I think people really need to understand that it's not an overnight thing, and it takes time. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And like I said, I'm sure there's a few franchisees out there who would say, well, I made mine a huge success in 6 months or a year, and they have. I'm just saying, I think they're fewer and far, a whole lot less. Yeah.
Let's talk more about some of those success stories. If I asked you about any BKP franchisees, are there any stories that kind of stand out or really are top of mind for you about a franchisee?
Well, it's funny, I just got done saying how it takes up some ramp up time, but I know two of our franchisees, both, within being in business and for 6 months, both, got multi-million-dollar projects. So I know what I just said, but here we have two that were huge success, exceptions to that rule. And again, I think that these were projects, had they been independent or did not have the backing of the BELFOR Franchise Group, they probably would have been wise to pass on those jobs because they were so big, just from an operational standpoint, and obviously all the financial backing you would need for it. But we were able to work with them, have them accept those jobs, and help them take on projects that big, that new. So yeah, those were surprises, that those such large jobs came in so quickly, and I certainly wouldn't promise any new franchisee that would happen. But those were two pleasant surprises for the system, that's for sure.
Tell me about how a franchisee of BKP may work with a franchisee of some other BELFOR franchise group.
Yeah. Hey, that's a great question, and it's why we're strategic about the brands that we either start or acquire, because we want them to have the ability to work off of each other, right? BELFOR is a perfect example. I think virtually every one of our brands, BELFOR can be a customer to those brands, and vice versa. But certainly, it's great for our franchisees to have a terrific relationship with our other brands, because they can all help each other and they can all help market each other's brands and market together. So having the ability to just pick up the phone and call, a sister franchise that offers a service that and you trust and that will work with you, is a very, very big deal. And again, we encourage that, all the time. Our plumbers franchise, we want them to know our Patch Boys franchise, right? A plumber's lots of times can get called into somebody's house because a pipe broke. Well, our water damage franchise can help with that. Or a pipe broke and the plumber had to cut a hole in the ceiling to fix the pipe. Well, now the drywall needs to be patched, right? So they can all certainly help each other out and work with each other. And obviously we encourage as much as we can for them to be reciprocal with business opportunities for each other. And having 14 brands now, we kind of look at that as 14 opportunities or 14 built-in customers.
That's great that franchisees from 14 different brands can work together on projects and maybe solving a problem. What makes Blue Kangaroo Packoutz a little bit different than any of the other brands within the BELFOR Franchise Group?
Yeah, like I said, I think that one it's just such a specialized niche, and it's an unknown. If you and I we're talking about it, so you know what it is. But I mean, if you were to ask your neighbor, have you ever heard of a company that does pack out restoration services, they would roll their eyes and say, I have no idea what you're even talking about, right? But if you obviously ask them, about a lot of our other brands, it's a very recognizable service, our dumpster business, our plumbing business, our Patch Boys, those are all services you would recognize. But the general public just would not recognize that Blue Kangaroo Packoutz brand until they had a specific need for it, and it would get introduced, through the disaster restoration industry or the insurance companies or whatever. So that one again is that to me is what makes that a little different than the others. It's just not quite that general consumer recognition of the service that it provides. Yeah,
Got it.
It's also what makes it, because it is such a large player in such a small niche. It's one of the reasons for its success. Sure. Yeah.
So, last question about BKP. Is there anything about BKP that makes you especially proud of that franchise opportunity specifically?
Yeah, I'm very, very proud of it, and this honestly just happened, a week ago, where an elderly couple had some fire damage at their home, and our crew went there and packed it up and moved it out. And during the process, they found an envelope under the rug, with $1,400 of cash in it, and they returned it, to this elderly couple, both of which had forgotten, that the money was there. And they, it literally brought them to tears of how honest, our people were, and obviously spoke volumes of our people to have that kind of integrity and to do that. So, those are the feel-good stories for us that, we just love to hear about, we love to talk about, and, we love those stories. And we tried very hard to instill in the BKP brand stories like that, so that everybody understands you do the right thing. And Sheldon Yellen is our, CEO, and that's one of his key phrases is, you do the right thing even when nobody's watching. And we live by that.
Rusty Amarante, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for sharing all of that great advice about the BELFOR Franchise Group.
Jack, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Enjoyed the conversation. And I look forward to talking to you again. Thanks so much.